Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Mufti. I am from Sweden and I have questions that I have heard many times, but failed to find some answers to them. They all come from younger brothers with a different mindset, but it's still questions that need an answer so they do not fall into haram. Some of the questions are related to sexual intimacy, like, is it permissible to use sex toys, dildos, etc.? And can they be inserted into the woman front and back? You have said that oral sex is permissible. Well, what is the ruling on semen, sperm? Can it come in the woman's mouth? What is the ruling on the anus? We know anal sex is not permissible, but what about playing with it, inserting fingers, licking, etc.? I'm sorry for the maybe vulgar language. I needed some answers that I can pass on. If you do not feel like it's something you want to publicize, you can just send the answer to me. Barakallahu fikum wa jazakallahu khair. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you abundantly.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Ameen to your dua, and the same for you, my dear brother or sister in Islam. May Allah bless all of the brothers and sisters in Sweden and all of the disciples bidhnillahi ta'ala in the Scandinavian parts of the world. With regards to the question, which is a very frequently asked question, we've spoke about it before on Mufti Q&A. We're going to read here from Mufti Q&A, book 1. We've discussed it, alhamdulillah, in detail. Alhamdulillah, not bragging and boasting, but some of the details we've mentioned here in this source, I don't think too many other people have in one place, let alone in English, and the actual breakdown of the whole concept of these issues of sexuality. So the question is basically regarding oral sex and some of the things that could or maybe make it halal or haram. All right, semen, seminal fluid, sperm, pre-cum, cum, the list goes on, the different colloquial terms. Then it's a branch off of the oral sex and of sexuality, and we know that there's no shyness when it comes to learning to what to do and what to avoid. That's a good thing, as we have established in other classes. With regards to sex toys and dildos and playing with them and using them on one's female partner, with regards to vaginal insertion and with regards to anal insertion or penetration. Is it permissible to use a dildo and put it in a woman's vagina? Is it permissible to use a dildo and put it in a woman's anus? A plug, beads, or whatever the case may be, which is well known in the modern Western culture. Is it permissible or not? And the list goes on. In brief, bidhnillahi ta'ala, we're going to read this bonus fatwa on page 87 of the book. If you don't have the book, inshallah, you might want to get a copy. And perhaps bidhnillahi ta'ala, we can arrange for the PDF or even the screenshots of these pages to be sent to you. But for everyone's benefit, it says this question is very uncomfortable for me to ask. But a sister placed this amana on me that I ask you this question. She needs the answer and approach me on this sensitive issue, which is oral sex. Her husband tells her that this is something that pleases him very much, and she wants to know, is it permissible in Islam, and if not, will she be sinful for fulfilling her husband's wishes? Also, is she disobeying her husband if she refuses and tells him no? Jazakallahu khairan. So the question is about oral sex, not about dildos and vaginal or anal insertion or penetration, but it's going to establish the foundations of the answer to those questions as well. I wrote here, the poor slave of Allah says, Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear sisters in Islam. There's no shyness in the religion when it comes to seeking knowledge. This is a very commonly asked question for several reasons. One of them is the time and place in which we live, and the striking differences between modern values, ideals, ideas, and practices of those of the past. Things are very different in comparison to 15, 30, 50, 100 years ago. The United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, etc. are very different places than the Middle East, the African continent, the sub-Indian continent, and many other regions. That's the first main point. That's the stone, the ground stone of everything, the stepping stone, the initial step right there. Secondly, the fuqaha of Islam have different positions and views on the issue of oral sex, which is not exclusive to Western countries, nor is it necessarily exclusively a new and modern concept of 2016, as many think or feel. In other words, the concept of fellatio, even the concept of anal sex and insertion, this is very old. If you actually read the books, you'll find different paintings, different statues, different carvings on cave walls and things like this. It says some of the reason or some of the reasons behind its modern popularity, is the legal discussions of the fuqaha, and the fact that it's become a staple part of sexual intercourse to many people. Many people consider foreplay, they don't consider it to be foreplay. They consider it all sex. There's no difference between oral sex, kissing, biting, licking, sucking, all a part of sex and stimulation. And this is also applied to the other issues that you're asked about. A woman or a man may say, I want to play with your genitalia, your anus, or your behind, your backside, or your vagina, your clitoris, or whatever the case may be, with licking, with biting, with my finger, with a toy. A woman may demand this. Is it permissible or not is a different story, but she may say, this is what turns me on. This is what lights my fire. This is what lights my fire. This ignites my engine. And if you do not ignite my engine, if you don't turn me on, then the sex is either going to be non-existent or it's going to be totally unpleasurable for me, let alone for you. So this is a reality. We have to be mindful of this now. It then says, that's the first reason why the question is so what? Popular. Then it says, it was once perhaps a social or cultural taboo, swept under the rug, or became more spoken about and accepted as a result of the countless movements of the 50s and the 60s, such as the sexual liberation, the feminist movement, women's rights, and the clearing up of misunderstanding many aspects of female sexuality. In other words, in the past, there may have been women who enjoyed these types of acts. Men who enjoyed these types of acts, who loved them, who demanded them, who wanted them, but it was totally unaccepted culturally. It was taboo. Shh, don't talk about it. That's disgusting. That's vulgar. Don't even bring it up. Even though they practiced it in the home. Then says, many consider oral sex a means of foreplay between husband and wife, both giving and receiving, as normal intimacy between the two spouses. We cannot forget the role that modern media, movies, cartoons, music, and the scourge of pornography, especially internet pornography, has played. All of these different reasons and factors on top of the mass migration of Muslims to non-Muslim countries, and in most cases Western lands, exposing them and their children to things that were never available or spoken about in their original lands. Pay close attention now. This is getting into the history and the philosophy and the psychology of this. In Pakistan, there was no such thing as a dildo, using a dildo. You don't touch your woman's vagina, period. You don't have sex with the lights on at all. You're under the covers. That's fine. But now, people went from Lahore, they went from Karachi to New York City. Now you cut on the television, sex. You listen to the music, he's talking about a blowjob. Even if you're not listening to music, you drive down the street and you hear somebody talking about it. They made a song about a blowjob. This and that. This is a reality. Cartoons, high school, middle school, sports, video games, grand theft, all of these things. Talk about sex, and this is real. So now the people are being exposed to these things now. All right. It then says, these are all reasons behind this question being posed several times to the people of knowledge, over and over again. If you Google it, you'll find it in Arabic and English and other languages. Oral sex. Can I stick my finger in my wife's behind? Can she stick her finger in my behind? Can she lick my anus? This is a reality. Don't make funny faces. This is real. This is a reality. Brothers and sisters, they have these questions. Whether it's right or wrong, sick or not, it's a reality of 2017. It says here, the first view, now we're going into the actual fiqh ruling now. The first view. So we automatically benefit and learn that there's what? Khilaf among the modern day ulama with regards to oral sex. And if there is khilaf, then there's a set of rules that must be applied, such as not forcing a view, such as criticizing and repudiating others, because there's clearly khilaf among ahlul ilm, the people of knowledge. Moving forward, the first view is that it is haram and cannot be performed based on the following reasons. Their proofs and evidences. Number one, it is an act of imitating animals, which the Muslim has clearly been prohibited from doing. They say that dogs and other animals or insects, things like this, they lick and they suck the genitals of their mate. And a Muslim is not supposed to pray like animals, whether it's a rooster or a dog or a crow. That's in salah. You're not supposed to imitate a mean animal, a base animal, let alone other things. Everybody understand this? Secondly, they say it is a means of coming in direct contact with impure substances, an-najasat, such as pre-cum, the pre-seminal fluid. Everybody understand this? Fluid, prostate fluid, the list goes on. Whatever word or term medically you wish to use. Now this goes into the question with regards to the anus as well. And it's one of the main proofs of those who say it's haram use. They say you cannot lick, touch, let alone insert your finger into your wife's anus or her into your anus, because it's coming in contact not only with najasa, but they say an-najasatul mughallava, strict najasa, thick najasa. In other words, pre-cum is najis, according to most of the ulama, not all of them, but they say it's mukhaffafa, it's slight, and that's why you can just use a bit of water in your underpants and you have to wash them. And then we have methane, the blood of minces, that's najasa, which is heavier and thicker in the level of impurity than the seminal fluid. And then we have, may Allah bless you all, akramakum Allah, actual stool, actual feces or traces or sediments of stool and feces that comes from one's anus. So you're putting your tongue back there, or your face back there, or your nose back there, or your finger back there, or in there and up there. They say you're coming in direct contact with not just najasa, but what? Heavy najasa. Everybody understand this? Whether it's oral sex or actual licking your wife's anus, your wife licking your anus. Moving forward. They say, number 3, it is a means of imitating the kuffar. And the proof of this from the kuffar is the Muslims never did it. It was unknown until they migrated to America and Canada and UK. Then they saw pornography and saw the cartoon and saw the billboard and heard the rock, heavy metal rock artists talk about it, or the hip hop artists talk about it. They saw it in a movie. They saw it in a comedy show, a sitcom. They saw it in a soap opera. Then they learned about it and said, oh, that looks cool. Let's try it. Let alone just being in love with the kuffar and wanting to imitate them and copy them in everything that they do. Moving forward, the number 4, they say it is a base and mean act, unbefitting of the honorable Muslim. It's unbefitting. The Muslim is supposed to be kareem, noble, clean and pure. How can you recite the Quran, they say, kiss your wife, kiss your children? How can one may say, kiss the Mus'haf Sharif? There's a difference of opinion. Is it permissible to kiss the Mus'haf or not? Is it a bid'ah? Did someone of the Salaf do it? Al-Muhim. These things that you're supposed to do with your mouth, greet your brother, hug your brother, and then you put your face between your wife's thighs and you lick and suck and bite her vagina. Or you turn your wife on her stomach or on her knees and you put your face in her behind and you lick and suck her anus. They say, كيف هذا? Let alone the concept of a finger. What finger are you going to use to put in your wife's anus? Or is your wife going to use to put use in your anus? And next finger, you make the what? In the salah. Tashahhud. So they say, how can you make the tashahhud with a finger that you put in such a filthy, dirty place like this? Or they say, touching the Mus'haf Sharif, even if your hands are washed, just the concept that they say is mean, it's base, and it's unbefitting of the nobility of the Muslim. This is what they say. Moving forward, طيب. Now that's the first view. Alhamdulillah, as we said before, I don't think you're going to find this beneficial, thorough summary like this in another source. And Allah is most merciful. There isn't anything that states that it is, the second view is the exact opposite, i.e. it is halal and the reasons being. Number 1, there isn't anything that states it is haram, and the asl, the rule of thumb, the foundation, is that all worldly practices, is that they are halal until clearly proven otherwise. All foods, drinks, clothes, hairstyles, etc. are okay for the Muslim to enjoy unless there is something stronger to take us away from the asl. They say the evidence that removes the original asl must be strong and clear, not vague and general. Collectively put together, no. The proof must be frank and direct. It has to be a clear hadith saying, Iyakum, do not go near the dubur with regards to your tongue or your finger. Do not suck your husband's testicles. It has to be a specific dalil, and it can't be something that's general and vague. Number 2, they say, Allah has allowed a man to enjoy his wife and a wife to enjoy her husband in any practice or way as long as it isn't anal sex or vaginal sex. And what's meant here is during the monthly period. And what's meant here as a understanding, what's meant by anal sex originally is the insertion of the penis into the anus. That is the asl when the word sex is used. I had sex with her. In most cases, I what? Inserted my penis into her vagina or anus. I had sex with her. She kissed me. I kissed her. I fondled her. She played with me. I played with her. I ejaculated. She ejaculated. She gave me this and that. She did this. She gave me oral sex. I put my finger inside of her. She gave me a hand job. That is not the original usage of the term what? Sex. The original usage we said. In general, yes. But the original concept of the word sex is that it was actual what? Insertion. So therefore, the text with regards to anal sex, the asl, because we're not saying what's right or wrong, but the asl is that it's talking about the penis and not the actual finger. Pay close attention now. Number 3, as far as the concept of najasa, or imitating the kuffar, the fasiqeen, etc., these scholars say that these points are too general and vague, not strong enough to take precedence of the original asl, which is Allah and His Messenger have clearly allowed and encouraged the two spouses to enjoy themselves without restriction, except for what is clearly mentioned in the book and the sunnah, and oral sex isn't mentioned therein. So if oral sex is not mentioned, we don't necessarily, that I know of in my limited knowledge, a hadith that says you cannot insert your finger into a woman's anus or your tongue. Everybody clear on this? Based off of the text. Moving forward. So therefore, if there is khilaf among the people of knowledge, how should the sister deal with this issue? It's like any other issue of khilaf. If she was taught in a certain manner and way and feels and believes that it is haram, then she should avoid performing it. If that's her original madhab, her original teaching. I learned in Pakistan, you can't do it. And if she doesn't read and study something different, she should stick with what? What she was taught. As a blind follower, she was taught by a qualified Islamic source. Stick with what? Stick with that. Moving forward. If she was never taught that the act is haram, nor is that her certain belief. In other words, she just doesn't know. The husband says, can you give me oral sex? She says, I don't know. Is it halal, haram? I don't know. I never studied it in Pakistan. I don't know. Everybody understand? She has no madhab. She has no aqidah on this issue. There's no belief that she has on this issue. If that's the case, then it says here, then she should, and it being a part of making her husband more pleased with her sexually, allowing him to lower his gaze outside, pleasing his wife more, and avoiding sin and vice, which is widespread. Sex is everywhere. Evil is calling you to sex. Sexuality is a staple part of American culture, let alone, we didn't got to get into Europe. All right? Certain countries in Europe, which is well known, and which is legal prostitution. It's well known, and which sex is like what? Drinking a cup of tea. Everybody understand this? So if that's the case, and the husband wants it, and you don't believe it's haram, then we said what? As we said before, in the media, pornography, etc., then she should go ahead and partake in the act. Giving and or receiving and or both. As long as she doesn't believe that it's haram, it's going to please her husband and it's going to allow him to be more pious. I don't have to think about sex in the street because I get it at my house. I'm not tempted by the music that I hear walking to work, driving to work because my wife pleases me. Everybody understand this. This is very important fiqh. And it's must that we deal with the situation with total transparency. And if we don't, we're lying to ourselves and lying to the people. And the people are going to fall into vice. They're going to fall into vice with fake piety. And they're going to fall into vice with lack of what? Transparency. We do not live in some pious Bedouin nomad village in which you never see the skin of a woman except her arms are lifted up when she's milking a goat or fetching water. That's not our environment. It's not the culture to loose fitting clothes. Culture is to wear skin tight, short clothes. And if you don't like sex, if you don't have a girlfriend, if you're not making zina, then you're gay. That's the culture. Something's wrong with you. You don't like women. You're sick if you don't have a girlfriend and a boyfriend. It's a normal part. Sweet 16, prom, and the list goes on. Moving forward. It says this is because she doesn't have any yaqeen and now adopts the madhab of her husband on the issue. Another important concept of marriage. The husband says, wear the niqab. She doesn't know about the niqab. She should do what? Follow the madhab of her husband because she has no previous teaching on it. And it pleases the husband. Moving forward. As long as the husband himself actually believes that it's permissible. That's another very important point. He's saying, give me oral sex because he believes that it's what? Halal. If he believes that it's haram, he should not tell his wife to do that. Moving forward. As for if the husband had the view that it is haram and only requested it based on his desires, then it will also be haram for both of them, and also a means of contradiction and hypocrisy. And there are many brothers like this. There are what? Many brothers like this. They tell their wives to do things that they believe are haram. We say this openly. A sister may request her husband to perform oral sex on her, and he says, no, it is haram. It is disgusting and filthy. It's from the West. There's no problem if that's what he believes and feels. He believes that. But then he turns around and commands his wife to perform the same act on him. His wife says, do it on me. No, a'udhu billah. But do it on me. That's unfair. That's not a fiqh. That's not a madhab. You're not following and studying anything talking like that. It's unscientific. It then says, this is clear double standard and hypocrisy. So therefore, once more, if she doesn't have a previous stance on the issue, she should follow her husband and partake in the act, giving and receiving for several reasons. Number one, to please and satisfy her husband's sexual desires. Number two, it isn't clear-cut haram. Number three, in issues of khilaf, the wife should follow the madhab of her husband unless it's clearly wrong and the dalil is strong and clear against the husband's position. That's a golden principle for 1,000 different issues. Do you have to wear niqab? Do you have to pray at night? Do you have to cover your hands? 1,000 issues. That's the golden rule. Moving forward, therefore, these are the general rules of dealing with issues of khilaf and also between husband and wife, such as covering the hands and face and not any other issue. Once more, she must not lose focus on the importance of keeping her husband chaste and sexually pleased in order to avoid the haram and fahisha. Also, if she's never performed the act and finds it difficult in the beginning, perhaps she will come to enjoy it and find pleasure in it herself, or at worst, be able to do it and perform it in the future, and Allah could bless her for sacrificing her personal comfort to please her husband. Last but not least, we thank you for your maturity and courage to ask this question, which is obviously difficult and thorny to many Muslims today. Same to the questioner as well. May Allah reward you well. Allah surely knows best, and with Him is all success. So that's a platform. That's the oral sex. Is the pre-cum, the semen, is the sperm, is it clean, is it unclean? You put your face down there. That's what the ulama of Islam say. Some say it's najis, others say it is najis, but it's yu'afa anhu. You can wash your mouth, and the list goes on. If you have sex, there's najasa on your body. Can you not touch your wife's vagina? The moistness of your wife's vagina, the wetness of her vagina is najis, okay? What about your hand? You can't touch it? What about the cover, the sheet, the bed? There's a million different avenues when you take that view. Or the pre-cum from the man is najis, it's filthy, you can't touch it. So a woman cannot touch her husband's penis when they have sex. She cannot grab it. If it touches the cover is najis, you can't pray, you can't. Everybody understand that? Khayr, inshallah. As far as the concept of inserting the finger or licking the anus, let's start off. The oral sex is clear. And I believe, wallahu alam, that the first step is the oral sex on penis or vagina. The next step is oral sex on one's anus. One may use the fact that it's najasa, but in reality, there's no difference between one's anus and one's penis or vagina. Just as I made istinja, I cleaned myself, you wash with soap, and there's no trace of urine on my penis. There's no trace of menstrual blood in my vagina, and it's permissible for me to perform or receive oral sex. Then what's the difference with the anus? With the concept of it being what? Clean, and there's no physical impurity upon it. Now we have to be scientific and objective and transparent. The concept of najasa being on the what? Skin. The moment the najasa is removed, it's wiped, it's clean. Regardless of what you feel is taboo and the place is nasty, it's not. But the skin is now what? Clean. Now, the concept of bacteria, you either want to take one or two views. Oral sex is totally haram because bacteria from one's anus and bacteria from urine and menstrual blood. So oral sex is haram. Clear. But if you say that oral sex is permissible, your wife can give you a blowjob, quote unquote. You can do this with your wife, quote unquote. Everybody understand this? And it's bacteria. Then what's the difference with regards to the anus? We're talking about scientific medicine now. If you can prove that there's more bacteria, it's harmful to the body, then that's a different story. But the general view is that you either want to say one of the two things. And I'm talking about this because many people, they'll say it's permissible for your wife to perform fellatio. It's permissible for you to eat your wife out, but you cannot lick your wife's anus. That's haram. Everybody understand this? Question is, why is it haram? Because it's nasty. It's like a dog, or it's impure, it's bacteria. And then the fuqaha, they say what? No doubt. That's غير منضبط. So you're either going to take right or left. As far as the insertion of the finger into the vagina, or the dildo into the vagina, that's the next step. Then the general concept is permissible for you to enjoy your wife. And I don't know of any hadith or ayah, anything that says that you can't enjoy your wife's vagina in its entirety. Touching, playing with it, putting your finger in it, if she's comfortable with that. As far as using a dildo or a sex toy, then it has to be detailed. Why is the sex toy? I'm going to speak frankly, no one get offended. If you're immature, if you feel like, but you just want to speak openly. There's some women that cannot reach orgasm. They cannot reach climax except through clitoral stimulation. She cannot have an orgasm. She cannot be pleased sexually just through penetration. So let's say, for example, her husband doesn't know this, which many men don't have a clue about this stuff, nor do they care to have a clue. But she knows that she cannot be pleased sexually unless there's clitoral stimulation. So he penetrates her, he penetrates her, he penetrates her. But she can't get an orgasm unless she herself or him plays excessively with the clitoris. So in this case, one may say it's permissible for the husband to use a vibrator on her clitoris. Or permissible, if you say that masturbation is halal, that's an issue of khilaf among the ulama. It's permissible for her to use it on her clitoris because that's the only way that she can become pleased. And she has to become pleased to be chaste, to avoid sin as well. Women have desires just like men, if not stronger than men. So therefore, with that being said, if it's a need and necessity for a vibrator or for a dildo, then that's one thing. Based off of someone's past, Allahu Alam. But if there's no need for it, one may say it may come from sexual perversion and it may be a means of sickness. These different sex toys that are, one may say, unnatural and come from pornography. And the only way that you know about a sex toy or some type of vibrator is from pornography, from watching porn. One may say this. So it should be avoided, especially if it's not a necessity. And others may say, no, la nusallim, we don't agree with that point. And there were people, women in the past, that used things as phallic objects, such as, we'll say a piece of history. It was well known in the Ottoman Empire and the Sultan's harem, when he had 10 to 12 to 15 concubines, women that were supposed to produce children for him, heirs to the throne. It was literally a baby factory. And it wasn't just he had women just because of his desires. It was a baby factory to produce children, okay? And not to have political ties with a noble family. That the child belongs to the Ottomans. This slave, this woman who came from Russia or Slovakia or Romania was brought here as a concubine. She produces the son. That's the first and only time that the Sultan has sex with her. That's it. The moment she bears a child, she's no longer a concubine and he doesn't sleep with her a second time. So therefore, we had all of these women that are supposed to be beautiful women according to their standards and tastes. These young women that were brought that don't have no way of fulfilling their sexual pleasures. So oftentimes they would cheat and they would sleep with some of the slaves or some of the male servants or the cooks or the doorkeepers. So this is well known. And oftentimes women that couldn't do that or that were too scared, they would masturbate and they would use certain things, phallic objects. The point of this is that it was documented that cucumbers were illegal in the Ottoman Empire initially, in the Sultan's court, the Sultan's harem. You couldn't have a cucumber. And if it was brought into his palace, the cucumber had to be cut up or sliced up. Why is this? Because a woman would use the cucumber to masturbate and stimulate herself. So let's ask ourselves a question. Was there internet pornography in the Ottoman Empire? Of course not. There could have been some drawings, some illustrations from the web, but it's not like today. So someone may say that the concept that a vibrator or a dildo is totally from pornography. One may say what? No, he may reject that, and that's what's historically, we've just proven that. So that's with regards to the vaginal stimulation with a vibrator or a dildo. As far as the anal stimulation, the last piece, which is the most the most dangerous topic of discussion, is that licking the anus, we said, one is going to take one or two views. As far as putting your finger on it and playing with it, then those who say that it's permissible to do, of the modern day ulama, and even in the past, they talked about anal sex in the books of fiqh. You find in the books of fiqh, it spoke about anal sex. All right? Some madhabs that were bold and transparent and real. All right? So therefore, some they may say that it's permissible for you to lick your wife's anus or to put your finger on her anus. And some of them may even say it's permissible to insert your finger therein, or 2 fingers, or 3 fingers, whatever is your personal choice. All right, that's your own discretion. But they say it's ill-advised. You shouldn't do it, and that's because a finger in the anus may lead to you inserting your penis into the anus, which is something which is clearly monstrous and disastrous. The issue of anal sex in Islam and the hadith and the narrations with regards to the impermissibility of anal sex. So therefore, they say that evil and vice starts as something small. And the shaitan plays around with a person, incites a person to start off and then fall right into it. So some of them, they say that it's haram, not because it's haram to do it, but it leads to haram. Sadd al-dhari'ah. So they say do not insert your finger into your wife's anus because it could lead you to inserting your penis into her anus. Everybody understand this? Then the other ulama of today, they say it's totally haram, period. You can't do it. You cannot insert your finger into your wife's anus. Sodomizing your wife is immoral. Sodomizing your wife is something that's clearly based off of sickness and illness, mental illness, sexual perversion. It comes directly from porn, and the list goes on. So it's just like the khilaf with regards to oral sex, the traditional orthodox oral sex. So therefore, you have to do what you feel is the safest thing to do. And also, you have to be realistic. And I'm going to say this. Let's say for a person wasn't a Muslim once, and they watched pornography in abundance. Unfortunately, like many young men and women do, or rather like many old men and women do, pornography is a $1 billion business. $1 million business, $1 billion business in America, outside of America. If you read the statistics of Google searches of pornography on the internet, some of the top viewers, buyers, and users of pornography are Muslims. And some studies show, Allah knows best, some studies show that India and Pakistan are the highest countries of internet pornography. So who are the majority of the inhabitants of Pakistan, except for what? Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists? Of course not, Muslims. India is a bit different, more Buddhists and Hindus and Christians, but there's a swarm of Muslims in India, as I saw with my own eyes. So if a person was a kafir once, or a person was a Muslim and they were sinful, or they were misguided, or they just didn't know and they watched porn in abundance, and obviously they become desensitized. The screw has become stripped from so many times of unscrewing and is stripped now. The vice grips no longer grab the screw anymore because you watch porn so much. And you get married, you make tawbah, you want to do the right thing. You become a Muslim. You want to do the permissible thing, but your sex drive, your mentality of sex is just totally jaded. They say worn out. And you can't just have orthodox sex. It's your wife, you make the dua, cut off the lights, get under the covers, on top, you're on your back, and then that's it, we go make wudu and drink milk and eat dates. He's going to say no. That's from someone from this country in this place. I suffered for years watching pornography. So there's certain sexual acts that I must do in order to get stimulated, as we said about the woman. She just doesn't get turned on. And that's going to be harms, physical harms and religious harms if she's not turned on. You can't have penetration with your wife if she's not naturally lubricated. And there's artificial lubrication, and the list goes on. So if that's the case, if that's your background, and you're trying to avoid the haram, a girlfriend and boyfriend, homosexuality, lesbianism, and you feel it's permissible, then you should do it. Because it's keeping you safe. And most important of all of these questions that we answer, we try to keep it real, as we say. We try to keep it real. No fake piety. It's unrealistic to tell this person, avoid it. Oh, stay away from it. It's nasty. You shouldn't do it. And a person is an ex-pornography addict. And he's trying to leave it off and do the right thing. All right? So that's with regards to that. As far as if you feel it's haram, clear. Avoid it. You take the view of those ulama says haram, you should avoid it. My personal advice is that if you don't have to do it, if you were not exposed to it, and if it wasn't a staple part of your sexuality, then you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. For those reasons. It's doubtful, it's khilaf, it may lead to actual insertion with the penis into the anus, and the list goes on. Okay, sexual perversion, sickness, bestiality, whatever the case may be. All right, but that's for somebody that has a clean slate, as we said. Somebody who has a what? A clean slate. In my humble opinion, the questioner is either asking for himself within a third party or asking for someone else, and they've obviously had what? A background, an exposure to it. And if they didn't, then they wouldn't be asking a question like that. Or if they didn't have a background exposure to it, it's something that is definitely on their mind in a mode of curiosity and doubt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Once again, please, brothers and sisters, viewer discretion is advised with regards to this video clip. And no shyness when it comes to learning the halal and haram. None of what I said, except for staying away from, is my personal opinion. I did not state my personal view and personal opinion. I'm doing nothing more than passing on what the ulama say, summarizing it, breaking it down, explaining it, using modern examples, using history, using philosophy, using psychology, using different elements to give a finished product. That's it. But what I do, what I advise to do, we did not say that. So no one quote and say, Mufti said, I can stick my finger in my wife's behind. Mufti said I should lick my wife's anus. I did not say that, nor did I say that you shouldn't. The only personal advice that I gave and I'm giving is if you don't need it, stay away from it. If you don't have to use a vibrator or a dildo, then don't use it. Don't use it if you don't have to. Everybody clear on this? Allahu Alam.